Today we're diving into Warren Buffett's way of thinking, the billionaire mindset inside of him. How does he really work? This isn't just about money. This is about making great decisions, thinking really long-term, and handling your emotions, and much more. You will get 10 specific examples of how his brain works with real examples from his investing career, Warren Buffett quotes, and the key takeaway really pinned out. Let's dive into it. Point number 1 is that he thinks really long term. In fact, he thinks like an owner. He thinks, what if he was buying the whole business and staying in it? Buffett's fortune wasn't built on clever trading techniques. It's built on having a really patient attitude to the businesses he's investing in and letting them compound over time. And when I say time, we're talking decades. If a business can generate profit over 10, 20, 30, even 50 years, that's what interests him. He said, our favorite holding period is forever. In fact, the way he invests in stocks is the way that a curator for a museum would buy art. He's really looking at it and thinking, does this fit into my collection of companies? Warren Buffett invested in Coca-Cola. This was after a flop. They created a new product. People hated the new Coke, and the stock price plummeted. He bought it because he believed that the brand was very strong and that it would still dominate decades later. And you know what? He was right. More than 30 years later, he has made the money back so many times, even just in dividends from Coca-Cola, but also in a stock price that is so much more worth today. Point number 2 is to stay within your circle of competence. Warren Buffett doesn't invest in anything that he doesn't really understand. That's why he stays away from many complex industries, technology companies, for example. By focusing on something he really understands, deeply understands, he reduces risk. One quote here is, the important part of investing isn't how much you know, but how you define what you don't know. One good example of this, everyone was chasing internet stocks with the dot-com bubble. Buffett was criticized for not investing in them. In fact, one person at the annual meeting in Berkshire Hathaway asked this question: why have you not invested in any internet stocks? Do you not have any brain cells left to pick an IT company? Wow, that must have hurt, right? He openly admitted that he didn't understand them. And that would prompt questions like that. But actually, it was, in a way, a stroke of genius because he was one of the only ones who didn't lose a lot of money when the dot-com bubble burst. In fact, Berkshire Hathaway's stock rose in that period. Point number 3 is mastering emotional control. Market swings between fear and greed. Most investors get caught in the storm, somewhere between buying in euphoria and selling in fear. In fact, Buffett's cool temperament is really his edge. In one of the first TV interviews that he did, he's asked, what is the most important quality in an investor? And he says temperament. He also says that it's 80% of the success. Temperament is really, really important. One example from his investing career is during the financial crisis. He really stepped in. He invested heavily once the financial crisis broke. He invested heavily in Goldman Sachs and negotiated deals that gave him both high dividends and really good options. Where other people saw disaster, he saw opportunities because he stayed calm. He remained calm. If you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control anything. Ask yourself, how would I react if this stock plummeted 50%? Would I still want to buy more shares? Point number 4 is that he really values time. Time is an important asset. Buffett has more money than he can ever use. But the one thing he really protects is his time, because he can never get his time back. When Warren Buffett met Bill Gates, they compared their calendars. And Bill Gates' calendar was full of meetings, like the typical CEO calendar. Warren Buffett showed him his calendar and it was empty. Why? Because he values his time. He protects it so he has time for what is most important to him, which is reading, learning, and making sound investment decisions. The billionaire mindset treats time as a non-renewable asset. You can never get the time back. So one thing to ask yourself is, am I spending time where it's most important, or am I keeping myself busy? Quote from Warren Buffett: the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Point number 5 is keep learning every day. Buffett is famous for being a lifelong learner. He spends 5 to 6 hours reading every day. Knowledge compounds. The knowledge that you get today will build on the knowledge you got yesterday or the week before that. And the knowledge you get tomorrow will build on the knowledge you get today. It's a bit like money invested, which compounds as well. Buffett says, the more you learn, the more you'll earn. Every year at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, there is a list of recommended books that Warren Buffett has read and that he recommends that you read too. And it's a pretty long list. One thing to ask yourself is simply, which books am I planning on reading this month? And the lesson here is that the billionaire mindset is never static. It keeps on learning. It keeps on evolving. The way that Warren Buffett invested early in his career is very, very different from the way that he invests later in his career. And that's because he kept on learning. He kept on getting better and better. And so should you. Point number 6, think in probabilities, not certainty. When it comes to investing, nothing is certain. That's why you have to think in what ifs. What are the chances that this company will succeed? And what happens if it doesn't? What if the worst thing happens? Like Charlie Munger used to say, Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's partner. He is deceased. He used to say, tell me where I'll die and I'll never go there. And that's kind of how you have to think about investing. What happens if something goes wrong? And what are the odds that that will happen? What are the odds that they will succeed? The quote from Warren Buffett would be, you only have to do a few things right in your life as long as you don't do many things wrong. What does this mean in terms of investing? Well, he's also said that think of it as a punch card. You only have so many punches, let's say 10 or 20. And if you think really hard about what you do, and one of them compounds really, really well, you will become rich. But you shouldn't have too many punches that are bad. You shouldn't have too many punches at all. And what are these punches in the punch card? Those are your investment decisions. An example of this would be See's Candies. He knew that See's Candy had a really strong brand, and he knew that people would keep buying chocolate no matter what. In the States where See's Candy has a strong brand, it is their chocolate to buy for special occasions. It's the chocolate to buy the first time you meet your mother-in-law. It's the chocolate to buy for an anniversary. It's just the chocolate to buy. And he knew that. So the downside was very limited, whereas there were good chances that they would do well in the future. Today, See's Candy has generated over $2 billion in profit for Berkshire Hathaway. That's a lot. Point number 7, be independent in thought. Warren Buffett doesn't care if anybody agrees with him. He relies on his own company analysis. That independent thinking has been one of his greatest strengths. A quote here would be, you can't buy what is popular and do well. In every market, there's something that is super popular. Everyone is talking about that stock, and it is rising like crazy. You don't want to invest in that. Very, very often, it will plummet. Examples of this, one example is Novo Nordisk in Denmark, that last year was just, the stock was going up like crazy, and then now it's down more than 60%. There are plenty of these examples. Another example from Denmark would be Ørsted. It went up for some years. Everyone thought you were crazy if you didn't invest in it, and then it just plummeted. There's so many examples of this. Cannabis stock, remember those? They went up like crazy, and then they plummeted. Do not invest in what is super popular, not without doing a proper analysis at least. One example of his independent thinking would be how he reacted after the financial crisis. He wrote an op-ed that's with the title, Buy American I Am, and this was at a time when everyone else was selling. And the decision to invest so heavily after the financial crisis, or basically during the financial crisis, has made him billions. Point number 8, focus on the inner scorecard, not the outer. Buffett talks about two scorecards. The inner scorecard, where you measure yourself, and the outer one, where you seek approval from other beings. He says it's really important to live and be judged by the inner scorecard. Here's a funny quote. Would you rather be the world's greatest lover, but have everyone think that you're the world's worst lover? Or would you rather be the world's worst lover, but have everyone think that you're the world's greatest lover? Saying, would you rather be a great lover, but everyone thought you were a bad lover? Or be a bad lover, but everyone thought you were a great lover? Which one would you pick? One example of this was when he didn't invest in technology stocks during the dot-com bubble. He had that very difficult, and it must have been very hurtful question. Do you not have any brain cells left to pick a technology company? He stood his ground. Later on, he invested in Apple. And you can discuss if it's a technology company or not. Some people say it's a commodities company today. But he only did so when the timing was right. One question to ask yourself, am I doing this because it's the right thing to do? Or am I doing this because I want approval from other people? Point number 9, your reputation is an asset. Don't destroy it. Buffett views reputation as a form of capital. He's really careful not to destroy it. That's why he's very honest and very considerate in the way that he communicates and in whatever he does, basically. In 1991, Salomon Brothers that he was invested in faced a treasury scandal. He did something extraordinary. He stepped in as chairman and did his best to face it and rectify the situation. It is public knowledge that he hated that job. It was really, really horrible for him to try to work out the scandals. He was honest about it. He was completely honest, no cover up. He even had to go to Washington and talk to the regulators on camera. He didn't hide anything. There was no cover up. He just rectified the situation. This saved the firm at the time being. Doesn't exist anymore, but that's another story. And it helped build his reputation for integrity. Point number 10, live simply, even when you have billions. Warren Buffett lives in a house that he bought so many years ago when his kids were small. It's a simple middle-class house. He doesn't own a yacht. He doesn't have any fancy properties around the world. And this basically protects his time as well. When you have a lot of buildings and possessions, it steals your time as well. While other CEOs like to flaunt their lifestyle, he keeps it really simple. He drives to work and on the way he gets a breakfast from McDonald's. Not that I can really recommend that. Doesn't sound too healthy, but he's not known for a healthy lifestyle either. A quote here is, success is having what you want and happiness is wanting what you get. One thing you can ask yourself is this something I really want? Or is it something I want because of how people would think of me? This again is about the inner and outer scorecard. Are you chasing the outer scorecard with possessions? This is really about living a simple lifestyle. The lesson here is to focus on what matters, not what impresses others. And when that's said, Warren Buffett does, from time to time, invest in something if it makes sense for him. At the time when he had to save Salomon Brothers, he did not fly charter. He will make big investments if it saves him time. That's the Warren Buffett way of thinking. 10 principles that will give you a billionaire mindset from a true self-made billionaire. Now let me know which one of these points will you integrate into your life already today. See you in the next one.